Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from premium foiled stationery, Victorian illustration reflections, and the wonderland frameworks of embossed luxury journals, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of sequential graphic pedagogy, weaponized prehistoric rhyme deployment loops, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an endangered collection of raw cartooning assets running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, paranoia-slicked parameters of a scorched, high-density, middle-grade comic panel workspace, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of a devastating, multi-layered visual stanza generation matrix with pen pals DINO POET 2. A graphic novel, the exceptional, pulse-pounding contemporary illustrated masterpiece engineered by the absolute undisputed global sovereign of breathtaking graphic secrets, razor-sharp comedic timing traps, and high-velocity structural friction, Tom Angleberger. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where an endangered primary reptilian writer asset running an unyielding page count extraction loop, a calculating manipulative shadow network of editorial enforcers running an elite proximity tracking and standard sanity erasure routine, and an absolute defense against a terrifying creative block confined punctuation containment zone collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn creative journeys where endangered, hyper-observant protagonists must navigate an absolute maze of rigged rhyming documentation, corrupt prehistoric character blueprints, and a deadly ring of active personal deadline frame-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised domestic ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep behavioral profiling, calculated drafting table boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory executioner asset weaponizing highly advanced digital distraction mechanics, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, meticulously paced illustrated literary incubator tracking an aspiring prehistoric creator who deploys advanced epistolary and poetic dossiers to systematically forge a complete graphic manuscript before a terminal release milestone, diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits. This book is engineered to lock you in. Angleberger completely dominates the high-precision visceral jeopardy meets suffocating narrative erasure puzzles dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating blank-page paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre varks like Dav Pilkey, Lincoln Pierce, Jeff Kinney, and John Cizeska, while treating realistic layout logistics, complex dark possessive loyalty arcs, and protective high-density isolation extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse creative asset, operating under a severe calculation-heavy handicap of a total loss of structural safety networks, absolute emotional liquidation logs, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within a cutthroat modern publishing matrix. Behind our protagonists' rigorous daily footprints, defensive conversational shields, and sharp observation metrics lies an intricate matrix of hidden structural vulnerabilities, deeply buried Paleolithic poetic instincts, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Her collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight following an abrupt plot outline deviation sequence, her entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from an encroaching internal sabotage network, parsing complex behavioral shifts in her daily comic panel interaction loops, and shielding her vulnerable personal sovereignty node from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless elite cleaning crew offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches her active scanning perimeter. While sorting through a series of blank document grids, our primary asset registers a total security breach when the graphic novel's psychological onboarding sequence initializes an irregular descent into active storytelling logs, systematically tracking distinct structural sections covering mail exchange protocols, stanza structures, and character building files, forcing her into a proximity tracking matrix with an oncoming narrative resolution. Behind the children's fiction world's pristine, smooth aesthetic facade and elite behavioral mapping style lies an intricate matrix of severe ideological warfare and a cold, calculation-heavy containment blueprint. As the hostile adversarial investigation phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across a ticking clock timeline, the unauthorized discovery of missing rhyming blueprints, hidden correspondent motivations, and altered lettering logs reveals that her entire leisure sanctuary was an explicitly engineered trap. The standard boundaries of routine domestic courtesy and peaceful civilian compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. She is thrust directly into an active, invisible war behind closed bedroom doors, where a highly manipulative psychological gaslighting matrix launches aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress her survival data stream and execute her complete systemic erasure. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival war turn completely active, transforming the large family living spaces, dark library corridors, and private fortified study rooms into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant heroine is forced to deploy her massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw physical stamina to preserve her focus before her adversary's relentless calculation-heavy proximity containment fence permanently deletes her boundaries. The threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, shifting dynamically through precise execution guidelines from initial ink scratching to final structural release loops, determined to deploy deep sensory manipulation loops, continuous psychological gaslighting by digital distraction maneuvers, and persistent dominance to shatter her defense, only to realize her hardened survival protocols and shifting counter-narratives match their opponent's raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight archival excavation of personal legal journals, every silent choice to stand off against an elite apex predator behind standard structural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at her reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the Predator Network's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Tom Angleberger reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial week 1 ambush or managing an invasive friendship disclosure. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of domestic manipulation and absolute structural supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around their building creative survival alliance, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes production breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that deep-seated obsession has tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient protagonist must unleash an unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a graphic novel fiction, epistolary captivity noir, comic illustration mystery, high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one unsubverted downfold triggers a fatal deadline showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy, possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Angleberger writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate takeover, and the distinct, subtle scent of polished mahogany, printer ink, heavy matte paper, colored marker tips, dark adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary instructional marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. Pen Pal's DINO POET 2, a graphic novel, is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputdownable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell with your network to rewrite the data. So secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.